When Fort Duchesne kind of closed down, a man by the name of H.P. Myton came over and asked my great-grandfather if he had any jobs that he could do. And he said, yeah, you can be the postmaster. People would deliver mail and they would say, take this mail out to the bridge. So the people would bring the mail out. If you're going out, take the mail out to the bridge. Well, there came to be a time in our history when there was more than one bridge. And so it got kind of cumbersome, and they said, no, we can't be calling it the bridge now. We're going to ask you to name your post office or your town. So H.P. Myton penned in the name of a friend of his in the government back east. I believe it was Bristol or Briston. And when it got there, the Briston intercepted that and crossed that name off and put in Myton. That's how Myton got its name.
I don't know who decided they would divide Wasatch County up. I don't know who did. But in 1914 they did it. They divided that and made Duchesne County here.
Because we were at that time the hub of everything, it was a foregone conclusion that Myton would be the county seat in the minds of the people of Myton. And this is how apathy happens. Nobody went out and voted. The people of Altamont sided with Duchesne, and so they went down and very handily won the election. That's how it got spirited away from us.
And we had the first county fair here. Duchesne hadn't been named yet. So Myton held the first county fair here.
In the beginning, everyone was down on the riverbank, and that's where Myton was, where the first buildings and everything were. And every year, the Duchesne River would swell up, and they would live and pray that it wasn't going to overflow and flood out Myton. Well, they got this idea that if they let off this small charge of dynamite, it would kind of like push the river over just a little bit, so that it would move it kind of away from, downtown Myton. It blew the river away from the bridge. Here's the bridge, no water. Water is over here. We had marshal after marshal after marshal because they realized after about a month they didn't get paid and they got beat up a lot. When Marshal Delante came to town, he was really trying to fight the bootlegging, and he could not stop them. So one night he developed a scheme, and he planted dynamite in the fronts of all the buildings that he suspected of having a hand in this. He set the dynamite off and blew up all the building fronts in Myton. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it startled them out of their beds at 4 in the morning, and everybody was righteously indignant about it, of course.
(1922) is when the banks all went closed and hard times hit, and the town never really grew back up to what it had been.
There were rumors that they were burning buildings down for insurance monies, which probably was probably true. When people get desperate, that's what they did back then. So I have a picture of half the town practically burnt down, all the buildings, all the businesses burnt. And they had a card table set up, and people were sitting in chairs like these, and they were trying to gather signatures to try to get some form of a fire department built, so that wouldn't happen again, so that we wouldn't lose everything.
The LDS sent a guy named William H. Smart out here. This Myton Bank had closed, and there was none in Roosevelt, and he come to my grandfather, a bunch of these old hardheads, and said, I can help you finance a bank for an interest in the bank. Well, they were LDS, and he was, and they wouldn't deal with him. And he stood on the steps of the bank, they said, and said, well, you'll see the day that jackrabbits and tumbleweeds run up and down the street here. He was supposed to have said that. Well, my wife wrote the book on Myton and the story about it, and she researched all of William H. Smart's diaries. And he kept a diary, daily diary, and she couldn't find any reference to that statement. Whether he didn't write it in there or it wasn't said, they don't know, but that was quite a story that was told. And I've seen the jackrabbits and tumbleweeds run up and down the street.
During the period of time when Myton was forming and the whole Uinta Basin was forming, the presbytery back east decided that they needed to send someone out to Myton so that the Mormons might not be left to themselves, is how it was written. And so they sent Clayton Rice out. He got into a fight with a belligerent person because they were trying to size him up when he got here, how he was going to be and if he could make it here in Myton. And he did, and he played on the early baseball teams, and just a really neat person. At that point, there were a lot of Presbyterians.
I know my grandfather and grandmother gave the first $1,000 towards building it. My mother was proud that they had done that.
I love to read about that era because there was so much hope for Myton at that time. We hoped that we would be a large and wonderful enterprise, and all of these people were those types of individuals. They were builders of the new order, kind of, so to speak, you know, and they were coming out and tackling the West.
We had a runway down here below town a mile. We had a ball diamond down here and stands, and they had a plane come in and was taking people for rides and stuff like that. And they got fooling around and lit some fireworks in the plane and was throwing it out and caught the plane on fire. So it made a run for the airport down there, and it landed and they got out okay, but the plane burned up. There was a lot of us flew at that time, I'm going to tell you that, come out of the service. And then we got married. That ended that. Everything happened in the Opera House. Even we had the Indian bear dance, and they built a bear dance corral right to the side of the Opera House, and they would have their bear dance there every spring. At the Opera House we had traveling stage shows coming through and dances, and it was quite a place.
The Opera House burnt down in 1937, around the same time when half the town burnt down.
They were having a cook-up of something in the back rooms of it one afternoon, and it got away from them and burned it down. When I was a kid, they had a little two-wheel cart with a barrel on it and a hand pump on it. And I only seen it try to operate once at a fire here on Main Street, which was a sad thing. The bucket brigade could have done a lot better if we'd had enough buckets, you know, to go from the ditch on each side here. And we didn't have anything until after World War II, and our mayor said, we have a chance to buy a surplus fire truck from Hill Field, and we can put a bid in it, but we don't have the money as a town. Would you all be willing to get out to people in town and told them that if they would donate $5, when and if our bid was accepted, you know. And it was accepted, so we got a surplus Army fire truck. And that was an upgrade, I'm telling you. It had a water tank on it and a pump on it. You could get to a fire with it. After World War I, they played a lot of baseball in the basin out here. So very few towns was White Rocks, Vernal, Fort Duchesne, and Myton. That's the 4 communities that were out here at that time. Little kids, we played kickball up and down Main Street. And in the wintertime, we ice skated on the river.
We hunted in the hunting season, and we did some fishing when we had time. Mostly just things that people did back then, raised their kids, played in the yard, raised a garden.
Just doing outdoor activities. Sometimes we would, with the neighbor kids down the block, we would get together and play softball in the field, or just something recreational. We ride bikes, you know.
And the kids in Myton swam in the ditches, and we ran around Myton and played with each other, played on the playgrounds, went into some of the old abandoned buildings and played.
The local churches and sometimes the city, but mostly when the churches back then had their summer sports programs, and we would attend those. If we didn't participate, we went and watched, you know.
We played softball, and Myton City had, not really Myton City, but a lot of ladies in Myton had a team, and I played on their team as I was growing up. And I also played basketball with one of my other relatives. They had res ball.
Education was probably as good as you could get any place, really. I mean, for the times. We had the grade school here, and then we went from here to Roosevelt in high school.
I liked having a local school because I felt they got more one-on-one education. We could go visit with the teachers if we needed to. But as far as the education, it's stayed pretty much the same until now. Now it has gone past my ability to keep up with it. Trying to help those great-grandkids with their homework is hard for me.
We have two schools. We have an elementary school, and we have what is known as the Connemore School. And the Connemore School is fitted for people with disadvantages, and they're born with disabilities. And Jane Thompson was and still is our champion for that. She also started an alternative school. The kids that didn't fit in any other school and were not able to mainstream, that was the Thompson School. Well, before that Thompson School, she made the Connemore School.
And they come all the way from Vernal over here to it, and they've enlarged that school quite a bit in the last 20 years or so. And it's grown to be a big school now. I mean, nothing like her little dream was.
Every year they have a special fishing day for those kids. And this doesn't necessarily just involve the people of Myton, but it involves the people of the Uinta Basin. And they have a free fishing day for them, and so they ask for volunteers to go up and sit with one of these kids and help him catch a fish, him or her catch a fish, and just enjoy the day around the pond.
When I had Fort Myton up here, the service station up on the highway, it was an old station that Standard Oil had built there, and it kind of went on the rocks.
Fort Myton has been kind of the lifeblood of our town for a lot of years. When Mom and Dad had it, they kind of built it into a little mini-mart before there was such a thing. They had every known thing in the world in there, and a cafe too. Daddy always felt it was very important to have a place for the people in town to be able to come and sit and visit and have a cup of coffee. We try to keep that tradition of having some place that you can go and eat in Myton. It's the lifeblood, I think, of our little town. And I must say that the Ute Petroleum now is taking a great spot in that, because they now have a lunch counter, and I understand they have specials. They have brisket on Wednesday, and they use their own locally grown cattle for all of their meats. And when we have our Myton days, they bring down a thing, and they have a steak dinner on Friday night with the Ute tribe, and they offer a steak dinner using all their Ute tribal food, and it's wonderful. I like it.
I think we keep our history through knowing who we are and where we come from. My grandparents lived up in Arcadia, and they always had a horse and buggy, a horse and wagon. So he would come down, and he never spoke English. He would only speak Ute. But he was really amazed to see that we would speak English to him, and he would just look at us with amazement, like, I have grandkids that actually speak English. Knowing who you are and how you're related to other people and your friendship with them keeps us strong. It keeps our traditions going. Because my father was the Sundance chief, we had people coming to our home all the time asking for prayers and blessings. And so he would tell us, you have to be respectful of those things. Sometimes I see my former classmates around the basin, people that I graduated with, and we all look at each other and go, we came a long way. We're still friends. Yeah, we are.
The municipal government, if it's effective at all, it continues the cycle of rebuilding and bettering itself. Every 20 years, you replace the fire station, the city hall, the streets. Everything needs to be redone. We were able to get grant funding to pave all of our streets. I believe all of our streets now have pavement, and some alleys. And it's hard to keep it up, but at least we have that now. Myton is different than other communities around here like Roosevelt and Neola and Altamont in that we were able to assimilate the population of the Native Americans, the Presbyterians, and the Mormons, and all of us, to the best degree that we can, have gotten along and have thrived. We've held community events together. During Myton days, you know, we have the Native American take Friday night usually, or Saturday, whichever one we decide on when we have our committee that year, and we pull together as a community.
It was a place where everybody was friendly and you could talk to anybody that you seen on the street. I spent some time in California, 4 years, and my wife and I run from that so quick, couldn't talk to anybody when we went grocery shopping. That's what brought me back, was just the loneliness for talking to people, knowing people.
I was real fortunate to live in this community. And I say fortunate because we knew everyone. We even knew their cats and dogs, you know. We were a small community then. Everyone, we were all friends.
It's taken a lot of years to overcome old President Smart's curse he put on us. Those who have not been here till now would not really be able to visualize the progress that has been made here in the last 30 years. And it's been slow, I'll guarantee you it's been slow. But we do the best we can with what we have.